English Flow Podcast.
From Speak English Flow Daily. Hello, English learners, and welcome back to the English Flow Podcast, your go-to podcast for everyday English, natural conversations, and simple listening practice for daily life. So happy you are here with us today. I'm Mia.
And I'm Leo. I had a really productive morning, actually. I was reading some interesting research on language learning, which is perfect timing for today's topic.
Oh, that's great! Yes, today we are going into something that I think almost every English learner struggles with at some point.
Let me guess. Thinking in English?
Exactly. Today we are talking about how to train your brain to speak English naturally, without constantly translating in your head.
This is such an important topic. I remember when I was learning another language, I used to translate every single word in my mind. It was exhausting.
Right, it is mentally draining, and it really slows down your conversations. But here is the good news. It does not have to stay that way. There are practical strategies you can use to retrain your brain. And before we jump in, if you are enjoying this podcast and finding it helpful, please take a moment to like this episode and subscribe. It really helps us reach more English learners like you.
Oh, and a quick note about today's level. We are speaking at a clear B1 pace throughout, comfortable and natural. But we will also introduce some B2 words and ideas along the way and explain them simply, so you are always growing without feeling lost.
Okay, let's get into it.
Mia, let me ask you, when you were translating everything in your head, what was the biggest problem you noticed?
The delay. Someone would ask me something and there would be this awkward pause while my brain was processing, because my brain was doing double the work.
Exactly. First, you had to understand the English, then translate it into your native language. Then think of your response in your native language. Then translate it back into English.
That is 4 steps, when it should just be 2. Understand and respond. No wonder conversations felt so tiring.
And here is something interesting. Many intermediate learners, even at B1 level, still do this without realizing it. Because it is a habit. Their brain has been trained to use that translation pathway, and it automatically goes there, especially when they are nervous or tired.
A pathway here means a route your brain takes to process information, like a path through a forest. So what we need to do is build a new pathway, a direct English route that bypasses the translation step completely.
Think of your brain like a forest. You need to get from point A to point B. At first, there is no clear path. You are pushing through branches, slow and difficult. That is what early language learning feels like.
But if you walk the same route every day, the grass wears down, the path becomes clear, and eventually you walk it without even thinking.
That is exactly what happens with language. The more you think directly in English, the stronger and faster that pathway becomes, until one day it is automatic.
So today, we are going to give you practical strategies to build those English pathways. Let's start with the first one.
Strategy 1. Mental substitution.
Tell me more.
Most learners at B1 level already know a lot of English words and structures. The problem is not knowledge, it is activation. Activation means your words are stored in your brain, but they are not being used. Like books sitting on a shelf that you never take down and read.
So we need to take those books off the shelf more often.
Exactly. Here is how. Throughout your day, whenever you think something in your native language, pause and ask yourself, how would I say this in English? But not just once. Try to find 2 or 3 different ways to express the same idea.
For example, this morning I was making coffee and I thought, I need more sugar. Simple thought. But then I pushed myself. How else could I say this in English?
You could say, this coffee is not sweet enough. Or, I would like to add a little more sugar. Or, this needs to be sweeter.
So you are not just translating one sentence, you are exploring different ways to express the same meaning. And this trains your brain to think flexibly in English, rather than looking for one perfect translation.
Language is not about finding the perfect word-for-word match. It is about expressing meaning. And when you practice finding multiple ways to say something, you are also preparing for real conversations. Because in real life, You often need to rephrase something if the other person does not understand.
So here is your exercise for this week. Choose 3 daily activities, maybe making breakfast, your commute, and getting ready for bed. During each one, narrate what you are doing in English in your head, and challenge yourself to say each action in at least 2 different ways.
For example, brushing your teeth. You could think, I am brushing my teeth. Then also, I am cleaning my teeth. Or, I am using my toothbrush.
Even simple actions get this double or triple treatment. After a week of this, you will notice English starting to flow more naturally, because your brain now has more routes to access the language.
Now let's talk about something that is often overlooked, the power of inner monologue.
You mean talking to yourself?
Exactly. And I know some people feel a little strange about this, but it is genuinely one of the most powerful tools for language learning.
I have to admit, I do this when I am walking alone sometimes. I have entire conversations in my head, usually in my native language though.
Well, here is the thing. You do not have to switch everything to English at once. That can feel overwhelming. Start with a bilingual inner monologue. Think something in your native language, then repeat it in English. Low pressure. No one waiting for your answer. No one judging your grammar.
And over time, something interesting starts to happen. The English begins to come first. You find yourself thinking directly in English without needing to translate at all.
Because your brain is highly efficient. It learns shortcuts. If you keep using the direct English pathway, your brain eventually realizes this route is faster, and it starts to prefer it. This is what neuroscientists call neural efficiency, your brain optimizing the routes it uses most.
And here is something even more powerful. Make your inner monologue emotional. When you feel frustrated, express that frustration in English. This is so annoying! Or, I cannot believe this is happening. When you feel happy, think it in English. This is wonderful. I am so glad this worked out.
When language is connected to emotion, it sticks much more deeply. Because emotions are processed in a very deep part of the brain. That is why people often remember strong words in a foreign language very easily, because they were said with strong feeling.
So use this to your advantage. Express your real emotions in English. Your joy, your frustration, your surprise, your excitement. Over time, English becomes the language of your feelings, not just your thinking.
Strategy 3. Input quality. And this is where a lot of intermediate learners make mistakes.
What kind of mistakes?
2 common ones. The first, consuming content that is too easy. Staying with beginner materials because they feel comfortable. But your brain is not being challenged, so it is not growing.
And the second, jumping to very advanced content. Native speed news programs, academic articles, and getting so overwhelmed that you give up.
So the key is finding what language researchers call comprehensible input. Comprehensible input means content that is slightly above your current level. You understand most of it, maybe 70 to 80%, but there are some new words and structures that stretch you a little.
Comfortable, but also learning. That is the sweet spot for brain training.
For B1 learners, first, look for content designed for your level. Podcasts, channels, graded readers made specifically for intermediate learners. Content that is accessible, but also gently challenging.
Second, use authentic content with support. For example, watch a series in English with English subtitles. The audio is natural, native speed English, but the subtitles give you a safety net. And here is a useful tip. Try to glance at the next line of subtitles just before it is spoken. Your brain knows what sounds to listen for, so your listening comprehension improves faster.
For reading, use the 70% rule. If you are reading something and you do not understand more than 30% of the words, it is too difficult. Put it down and find something easier. At 70% understanding, you can guess new words from context, which is exactly how native speakers naturally build their vocabulary.
And always choose content you are genuinely interested in. If you love cooking, read cooking blogs in English. If you follow sport, read sports news. Your brain works harder to understand content it actually wants to know. Motivation is a powerful learning tool.
And finally, spaced re-exposure. This means returning to the same podcast or article, but spread out over time. Listen today, listen again in 3 days, and once more a week later. Each time, your brain is in a slightly different state. You have learned more, so you understand at a deeper level. First time, maybe 70%. Second time, 85%. By the third, it feels almost effortless.
And that feeling of improvement is incredibly motivating.
Now, what might be the most important part? Output. Actually using English, speaking and writing.
This is what scares people the most. Many learners spend years consuming English, reading, listening, studying, but they are terrified to actually speak.
And here is the truth. You cannot train your brain to speak English without actually speaking. It is like learning to swim by only watching videos of other people swimming. At some point, you have to get in the water.
So, strategy 1 for output: shadowing. This means you listen to a native speaker, a podcast, a video, and you repeat what they say, trying to match their rhythm, intonation, and pronunciation as closely as possible. At the basic level, pause after each sentence and repeat. At a more advanced level, try to speak along in real time, like an echo.
It feels challenging, but it is incredibly effective. You are training your mouth muscles, your sense of rhythm, and your fluency all at once. And your brain starts to internalize the natural flow of English, not just the words.
Strategy 2: record yourself. I know most people do not enjoy the sound of their own voice, but this is genuinely valuable. When you speak without recording, you do not really know what you sound like. But when you play it back, you become your own teacher.
Here is a simple exercise. Choose a topic. Speak about it for 2 minutes while recording. Listen back and notice 3 things you want to improve. Just 3, not everything at once. Then, record yourself again on the same topic, focusing on those 3 things. Compare the 2 recordings. You will be surprised how much you can improve in one session.
And strategy 3: self-talk narrative. Throughout your day, narrate what you are doing, thinking, or feeling in English, but out loud, like a documentary of your own life. Now I am making lunch. I am going to have a sandwich. Let me check the fridge. There is some cheese and tomatoes. That sounds good. I think I will toast the bread first.
It feels a little strange at first.
It does, but it is incredibly effective because you are practicing real-time English production. You are not planning what to say, you are just saying what you are experiencing. Spontaneous, natural, exactly what you need in real conversations.
Do this when you are alone at home, in the shower, while cooking, while cleaning. Times when your hands are busy, but your brain is free. That is when the language practice flows most naturally.
Let's talk about something every learner experiences: mental blocks. Those moments when you freeze and cannot think of anything to say.
This is so common, especially for intermediate learners. And it usually happens because of anxiety. When you are stressed, your brain goes into a kind of survival mode, and it becomes harder to access your language knowledge.
So, first, recognize that it is normal and temporary. Everyone experiences this, even advanced speakers. Don't panic.
Second, have some filler phrases ready. Filler phrases are short expressions that buy you a few seconds to think while keeping the conversation flowing. For example, "Let me think about that for a moment." Or, "That is an interesting question." Or, "How should I put this?"
Native speakers use these all the time. They are completely natural. Think of them as small bridges between the question and your answer.
And third, simplify what you are trying to say. Often we freeze because we are trying to express something complex and cannot find the exact words. So, instead of giving up, break it down into simpler ideas.
For example, instead of, I am considering whether to pursue a master's degree or start working immediately after graduation, you could say, I am thinking about my future. Should I study more or get a job? I am not sure yet.
Same meaning, much simpler. And once you have said the simple version, your brain relaxes, and you often find it easier to add more detail from there. Getting started is the hardest part. Before we wrap up, there is one more thing I want to say, and it might be the most important thing in this whole episode.
What is that?
Patience and self-compassion. Many language learners are incredibly hard on themselves. They compare themselves to native speakers or to other learners who seem to be progressing faster. And that comparison is discouraging.
Learning a language is one of the most complex things your brain will ever do. It involves memory, pattern recognition, physical muscle coordination, cultural understanding. It is enormous. So be kind to yourself.
Celebrate the small victories. Did you understand a scene in a show today that you would not have understood last month? That is progress. Did you have a conversation in English, even with mistakes? That is progress.
And let's talk about plateaus. A plateau is a period where you feel like you are not improving. You are practicing, but your English does not seem to be getting better. This happens to everyone.
But here is what is actually happening. Your brain is still working during a plateau. It is consolidating knowledge, making deeper connections between things you already know. To consolidate means to make something stronger and more stable, like concrete setting after it is poured.
And then, suddenly, you have a breakthrough. Everything clicks, and you realize you have actually improved much more than you thought.
So during those difficult periods, do not give up. Keep practicing. Trust the process. Your brain is working even when you cannot feel it.
Let's quickly recap the main strategies from today.
Strategy 1. Mental substitution. Catch your thoughts and express them in multiple ways in English.
Strategy 2. Inner monologue. Talk to yourself in English and connect the language to your real emotions.
Strategy 3. Input quality. Find content at the right level, the 70% rule, and use spaced re-exposure to deepen your understanding.
Strategy 4. Output techniques. Shadowing, recording yourself, and self-talk narrative. Speak English every day, even alone.
Deal with mental blocks using filler phrases and simplification. And through it all, be patient and kind to yourself. Plateaus are part of the process. Breakthroughs always follow.
So, what is your biggest challenge when speaking English? Write it in the comments. We read every comment, and your questions help us make future episodes.
And if this episode helped you, please subscribe, share it with a friend who is learning English, and leave us a comment below.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us. This was the English Flow podcast from Speak English Flow Daily.
Keep practicing, be patient with yourself, and remember, you are doing better than you think. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. See you in the next episode.
Your English learning journey doesn't stop here. Continue building your confidence and fluency with the next episode of the English Flow podcast. Click the next video and keep progressing, one conversation at a time.